speak with you today. I want to share a personal story with you. As most of you know, I play the piano for the praise team at the Rocky Hollow campus. If you're a musician, you may recognize that slide up there. But the Rocky Hollow team uses chord charts. I was used to playing from traditional music. I should be ashamed to admit this. I had piano lessons for 12 years. I kind of didn't know the difference. I thought chord charts were for guitar players. I didn't quite get the full scope of that. So I attended Rocky Hollow back in 2017, and they didn't have a piano player. And so after church, I went up, and I had been a church accompanist for most of my life. My daddy was a preacher, so I started playing on Wednesday nights early in life. So, I went up to Paul and I said, hey, if you need somebody to play the piano, I could do that for you. He said, well, that'd be great. Let me send you the music. I said, okay. Guess what he sent me? Y'all, it looked like that. And I'm like, oh my goodness, that is not music. I cannot play that. I already volunteered. I told the man I'd been a church accompanist for 100 years. He thinks I can play. That's what I could play. That right there. That's what I could play. I will sing. That's what I could play. So I was very taken aback when I got this music that he sent me, and I'd already kind of committed myself. He sends it to, I said that on Sunday. He sends it to me on Monday, and Wednesday I'm supposed to show up and practice with the praise team. So, well, I will just go ahead and tell you, though, I struggled through it, and 3 years later, I can play chord charts. But here's the reason that I wanted to tell you that. During the pandemic, I decided to go through a desk. Then you all have things you decided you were going to do, clean out your garage. Yeah, well, some of that didn't happen. But I did decide to go through an old desktop computer that we had, because it was just in my way and I wanted to get rid of it, but I didn't even know what was on it anymore, right? So I decided to go through it, clean off all the pictures, get rid of the duplicates, go through the emails and all of those kinds of things. And I came across an old email. Most of you who have heard me speak before remember that my husband was a music minister, and he's been gone for 9 years. So as I was going through these emails, I find one that's dated December 2004, 16 years ago. And guess what it is? It's a piece of music that a lady named Cindy Guidry wrote for him. And she sent it to him. And I'm kind of ashamed to admit, I remember the day we got that email. He was so excited. He's like, look, Cindy sent us a song. And he waves this chord chart in front of me. And I kind of did the same thing, except I scoffed at him. He was my husband, right? And I went, I can't play that. I play sheet music. I don't play chord charts. I can't play that. And I just scuffed it off. And sweet man that he was, he's like, okay. He put it in a drawer and we forgot all about it. Ladies, that was 16 years ago. That song has been in that computer, saved somewhere in the cloud, until now. Guess what? I can play that song now. And I believe with all of my heart that it was written in 2004 for me to find in 2020 and to share with you today for such a time as this. The women's ministry had a plan for our fall retreat, but it was obvious that we weren't going to be able to do it like we had previously planned with food and around the table like we've always done before. So we began to pray and to think about what we could do. I reflected on our last event in March. Becky Washington so eloquently shared with us at that time how God clothed us in splendor with fruits of the Spirit. But who knew that the very next day, March the 10th, did y'all know that? We had an event at the ballroom with 450 ladies present, and within 12 hours, the whole world shut down. Wow. You think God wasn't present in that? Yes, ma'am, he was there. He was present. The whole world shut down. Well, I kind of began to think that, you know what, maybe God gave us that message through Becky about the clothed in splendor and all of the fruits of the Spirit to sustain us through those months of isolation. What a gift. What a gift God gave us that day. So I began to think about how we could go from there to here. I believe that God gave us that message through Becky about clothed in splendor with the fruits of the Spirit to sustain us and to prepare us for a pandemic, for such a time as this. Well, this is the song that I found. I want you to listen to the words of this song. As you prepare your hearts today and you open your minds to the words and to the message that Becky has to share with you. The title of the song is Melt My Heart, O Lord. Written 16 years ago. Never heard before today. For such a time as this. For the words. And I ask you, dear God, melt my heart today. Melt my heart, empty it, till there is nothing left but good identity. I ask that you would Becky give her the words, the message that you have to share with each and every lady that is here today. Amen.
I'm just going to say, if I were singing that, I would have been in tears and wouldn't be able to finish. Those were beautiful words, weren't they? Those were just beautiful. Well, hello. How cool to see all of you out there. When we first started talking about this, I thought, well, will we have 10 that might want to get out in the midst of all of this and come to this? And if we had 10 would be good. But I'm thrilled to see all of you here. I'm just excited to be here with you. Karen started us off with talking about the Clothed in Splendor event, and you know, honestly, I wish that all of you could have been with us from the beginning of that event. I want to say to you, Karen maybe got that vision from God. I don't know exactly when. I'm guessing August maybe of 2019, maybe September, but way back then. I mean, that's a year ago, about 6 months before the event itself. And she shared that vision with me towards the end of October, and our planning committee started meeting in November. What I believe is so cool is that God knew about that event long before August of 2019 when he revealed it to Karen as a vision for our women's ministry. God knew. So we're going to start with that, and I'm going to hit on that a lot for a minute because I don't want to move to anything else until we've nailed that. God knew. God was in control. God put it there by giving Karen a vision. I want to tell you, November, December, January, February, those of you who are out there, and I see many of you that were on our main planning committee, we saw so many miracles in the course of our planning. We never doubted, not one time maybe a little bit, kind of 1 or 2 times, but mainly we did not doubt that God was in control and that God was guiding us in our planning. And when Satan would try to mess us up, we felt him fighting our battles. It was just so evident that we were doing exactly what God wanted us to do because we felt his presence, we saw his activity, we saw him at work with that event. It was an amazing thing to have been a part of. And, you know, another amazing thing is what Karen's already mentioned. We were just starting to hear rumors of a shutdown, maybe. We had 3 or 4 people, is all that I know of, that called the church office and said, you know, I think I need to just go ahead and start staying at home and I shouldn't be out and about, so I'm not going to use my ticket. Maybe 3 or 4, not many of those. And when we got there that day, I want to tell you one miracle. Karen told me that my publicity committee needed to make sure we had 500 people there. But real quickly, when we met with the guy that was over the ballroom, he said, I can't set this up for 500. You're going to have to be okay with 450. So we attempted to sell 450 tickets. The miracle was, I just have to share this, the miracle was we had 450 seats. We had 3 or 4 that we knew weren't coming. We had several that showed up without a ticket, which was okay because we knew we had these that weren't coming. And we knew we had models in the back, and we knew we had kitchen help, and we knew we had our ushers and counselors, I believe we called them, that could sit in chairs if they needed to. So the truth of the matter was, I think all but one table was full. That was right at 450. plus 24 on the stage, the models, plus the counselors who are on chairs on the side, plus the kitchen crew that were in chairs at the back. I told Karen afterwards, I don't care what that guy said, we had 500 there. And it was okay that there were only 450 around tables. We saw God's miracles so many times in that event. And then the shutdown surprised us all. I mean, really, I was kind of shocked. But I also want to say to you, that didn't surprise God either. He knew that was coming. He was still in control. If we wanted to look at that and go, God, what's happening? Where are you? This is horrible. Why are you letting this happen to us? What's going on? The first thing we've got to do is just flat say, I know you're in control, God. This is weird. This is really weird, but I know you're in control because you told me that you would be. Your word says you are sovereign. That means you are in control of this. So, I'm like Karen. I feel like he did some things in me for sure. I hope he did in you. I hope his words uttered through my mouth maybe impacted you in some way. But I know he was there. I know he prepared us. He did that. And I believe with all my heart, you know, we usually have a monthly something for women's ministry here at the worship place. We've had nothing since March the 9th. No April, no May, no June, July, no August, no September, and now October, and finally we're having something again. God knew that too. He knew that was going to happen. And I'm thinking it was July when God again gave Karen the vision. And when she approached me, she said, my vision is that we take what he started in March and we carry it forward and continue it in October because he's still working and he's still in control. That's your vision? Okay. Is that cool? Yes. That is so cool. So this event is not an accident. It is not a coincidence. It is intended. It is purposeful. It's exactly what God had in mind. And we're going to do our very best to let God speak to us today as we go through this event. I feel like I'm coming in and out a little bit. Am I okay? I'm good. Okay. All right. So the first thing that I want to do is just make sure that we're okay with that. That all of our hearts, as best as we can be right now, that all of our hearts are okay with admitting God is in control. God is sovereign. Because that is fundamental to where we're going to go now. Okay. So I'm kind of thinking the first thing that I need to do is maybe just make sure you are aware of where the title of our event comes from. On our publicity kinds of things, we had the Bible verse, we had the scripture. It's found in the book of Esther in chapter 4. It's kind of a verse that a lot of people are familiar with because it's kind of used a lot. But because it sits right there in the book of Esther, I think it would probably be a good idea if we got the full context of where that verse came from. So what was going on in Esther's day that made that a really, really cool quote that 2,500 years later we're still using? So I'm going to use the book of Esther. We're going to kind of go in detail. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, I know some of you maybe have led a Bible study on Esther and you know it pretty good. Maybe you've sat in several and you know it pretty good. Maybe you're just kind of aware of it. You think you kind of know it. And maybe some of you are like, you know, I never do Old Testament. I'm not real familiar with that, maybe. I'm just going to say to you, regardless of where you sit on that continuum, my prayer today is that even if you know this book well, that your heart would be open for God to reveal something new and wonderful today that you've never had from this book before. So, let me put some context around this. The book of Esther, kind of in the first half of the Old Testament, it's a small book. It's only got about 10 chapters in it. It only has it has 10 chapters, so it's a small book. It's occurring in the time when the southern kingdom, Judah, has been defeated in a military battle against Assyria, and many of the Jews have been taken captive into Assyria. Now, it happened actually in 479 BC, so, maybe that puts some context around it. The thing that we also want to know is that Judah has now been in captivity for 70 years, but another thing that's kind of cool to know is that it falls between chapters 6 and 7 of the book of Ezra. What we know about Ezra is that he was the one that God appointed, and the king of Assyria gave permission to begin the trek of many of the Jewish people back to Jerusalem, specifically to rebuild the temple. So with this book, Esther, sitting right in the middle of Ezra, we can know that part of the Jews have headed back to Jerusalem to build the temple. So that's important for us to know. However, what we know is that Esther is still in Assyria. They didn't all go back. And if we want to think about it, we know that the southern kingdom of Judah was there for 70 years before they started filtering back. So we know Esther had never lived in Jerusalem, had never lived in the southern kingdom, had always lived in Assyria. Assyria was all Esther knew. It was her life. We also know that her mom and her dad were no longer living, and she was under the guardianship of a cousin, an older cousin. We're going to talk about her cousin a lot. He's one of our 4 characters in this saga. So we will talk about that. But I just want to hang on for just a minute to the fact that there's a lot of Jews from the tribe of Judah in Assyria, still at this time. Let me ask you this. I'll ask it rhetorically, and I'll answer it myself, because you've got masks on and it'd be really hard to hear you. What tribe was the Messiah supposed to come from? Oh, there you go. So if we really think about that for just a minute, there's the possibility that the lineage of our Messiah maybe was in Assyria when this occurred. So we're going to talk about that in a minute. Okay. I think it's also important for you to know, if you don't already, that God is never mentioned in this book. Only book in the Bible, God is never mentioned. So, you might ask, well, how in the world did it get in the Bible? What was that group of men thinking way back there centuries ago when they said that will be a part of the Old Testament? I actually want you to hold on to that question, because there's going to be about 4 times throughout this afternoon that I'm going to point out to you exactly why it's there. And the first one that I'm going to point out to you is because we needed it today. I mean, I'm dead serious. How many times do you think this message has been taught in sermons, in Bible studies? Many times. So God's people, us, we're going to need it. That's one reason it was there. Now, those men who put it there, they might not have gotten that. They might not have understood that at all. God knew it's there. But I'm going to show you throughout the afternoon some other reasons why it's in our Bible. Okay. So, The fact that God isn't mentioned, could that possibly mean that the events of Esther occurred and God wasn't there? That's why he wasn't mentioned. Could that be a possibility? Oh, thank you. Y'all are just giving me great answers. He's not mentioned, but he's implied. He's, okay, there's a vocabulary word that just refuses to come to my brain. Let's just delay this whole thing until it finally does. Let's see how long that takes. Never mind. I'll try to figure out another word to use, and we'll see if I can come up with one. One of the commentators that I read when I was studying for this said, the important concept here is that God wasn't hiding. He was just hidden. And there's a big difference. Isn't that cool? He wasn't hiding. He was just hidden. I want you to hold on to that too. Because sometimes we don't see God and we think he's hiding or he's disappeared. I want us to hold on to, sometimes he's just hidden. But he is still at work, and he was still at work right here in the book of Esther, even though he's not mentioned. He is actually still here right now in this room with us right now. He has not been hiding for 7 months during this pandemic, even though some of us think we may not have seen him, or we're at least saying, what in the world are you thinking, God, because this seems a little out of control. But the bottom line is, he is in control. He is still active. He is still alive. He is still at work. He is not asleep. He is not dead. He is here. He is in control. He is sovereign God. We can count on that. Okay. One of the major themes of this book is the providence of God, and I'm going to point that out to you over and over again. But the first thing we want to, how we're going to make that kind of stand out to us, is that what we're going to see in this book is that kings, rulers, principalities, authorities, they can do whatever they might think they can get away with, such as passing irrevocable laws or decrees, but God can overrule, and his purpose will still be there. And so you remember that. God will accomplish his purposes, which for us means Washington, D.C. is not in control. Russia and China are not in control. Our news media is not in control. Our social media is not in control. Those who oppose us are not in control. God is sovereign. God is in control. And we can rest and trust him. All right, so that's one of the things we're going to find in this book. And oh, how I hope you all believe that, because it is so important. Okay, let's move on to the story itself. So, Esther is in exile in a foreign country, an enemy country, actually. But honestly, she's basically living in peace. Maybe not wealthy, and maybe not influential, but in peace as such. It's all she's ever known. She didn't know it could be better or worse. This is just how she's lived for her 17, 18, 19 some odd years. And so we also know, as I've said, that she's under the guardianship of her cousin, and his name is Mordecai. So we've got two characters so far, Esther, Mordecai. I've also kind of mentioned the king. The king at this time is King Xerxes. He has another Hebrew name, but it's harder to pronounce, so I'm going to use Xerxes, and you're just going to have to be okay with that. If you want to use the other one, you go right ahead. I just didn't want to stumble around up here trying to say it 10 or 15 times during the day, so I'm going with Xerxes. So King Xerxes is in charge. What we know about King Xerxes is he is the king of a large empire, a very wealthy empire. But it's really not large and wealthy because of his mighty powers and intelligence. He inherited it from his wise and intelligent father, King Darius. So he's in charge, but what we know about him, what we see, what it's very clear in Scripture is that he's not the decision maker. He is easily manipulated. And there's many events we're going to talk about where you're going to see so plain as day that he is easily manipulated. So we want to remember that about him. When this story begins, he has been feasting with his key leaders for many, many, many days. In fact, what we kind of know is that he's been doing this for actually several weeks, even a few months. And part of what he's doing is he's trying to show off his wealth and power to all his people within his empire, but also some of the neighboring authorities. But at this particular time, he's been feasting with his key leaders for several days, and they've been drinking for a whole lot of that time. And so here we are, after several days of this, that he gets this wonderful idea, and he calls for his Queen Vashti, to come and present herself to all of his wonderful men, advisors, to put on her crown and come and display herself. And Queen Vashti says, no. Now, can you imagine? Can you imagine saying that, really, even to your husband, but to the king, your husband, the king? Well, she did. Well, now, it could be because she was entertaining the wives. And maybe she thought, surely he hadn't forgotten that I'm doing that. And he doesn't realize that that's really as important as what he's doing. Maybe that's what she was thinking. The truth of the matter is, doesn't matter what she was thinking. What matters is, she said no. And she didn't show up. Well, here we see the manipulation already. So the king is thinking, what do I do about this? How embarrassing. I mean, how do I look? And all of his advisors say to him, and if you want to go to your Bible, it tells you exactly why they feel this way. And they had, I guess, decent reasons why they feel this way, but that doesn't matter for our story. They said to him, she must be deposed. And so, in his state of mind, he went, okay, good. Depose her, get rid of her. Vashti's gone. Okay, story continues. They go through 2, 3, 4 years. They're still having military battles, but he's not being very successful. So at this time, 4 years later, he's pretty frustrated, probably a little angry, probably a little depressed. And so the advisors, they know something's wrong with our king, so they come up with this plan, and their plan is, he needs a new queen. Now, we all know they're right, because we all know that